Hello and welcome to This Is Poof.
Ah! What's that?
That's all the consoles that were announced but never showed up. Vaporware, everyone's favorite imaginary product. Let's see the first Vaporware console. The ApeXtreme.
Wait, is it the ApeXtreme?
No,
Wait.
it's ApeX.
Oh.
So originally showcased at CES in 2004.
So this is a Windows XP computer that ran DVDs.
It was basically just a DVD player.
With Windows XP on it.
Even though this was like Windows XP based, you actually needed individual scripts to run every one of the DVD games. But here's the problem.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of problems right now.
You couldn't upgrade it. I understand not being able to upgrade the hardware.
Sure.
However, you could not add any new scripts. So when Oblivion came out for this, when Skyrim came out for this, when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out for this, you couldn't add the new one.
The way this worked was because it was running Windows XP. If you put a game in, it would have to have a script for that game. Apex Digital also, I think, was an established company. Like that.
And now they
name
make
rings a
Apex
bell.
Legends.
This thing is wacky. I appreciate the je ne sais quoi. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that, but I did anyway. But sadly, like most of the other consoles on this list, it was doomed to disappear into a vaporous pile of fraudulent investor capital expenditures.
The Atari 2700.
Wait, what?
I feel like I'm gaslighting myself into thinking this was real.
This was designed to come out in 1981. Imagine wireless anything in 1981.
The controllers used radio signals and were powered by a removable 9-volt battery. The controllers were doomed the console because their working radius was about 1,000 feet, which was really impressive.
And they were just spamming out
But
radio
there was
frequencies.
no specific pairing mechanism. So
Wait, hold on. Are you trying to tell me that I'm on my Atari, I'm trying to control my ET or whatever, and I'm accidentally opening my garage door of a house 4 doors down?
or someone opens their garage door
And it starts controlling your game.
Yeah.
I can see why this was canceled because of problematic activity.
Like, do you remember when we had the remote control Miles Morales that just kept turning on and driving because we just had random radio signals in the studio?
Yeet it real hard.
I'm not gonna eat it.
Yeet it.
Yeet it.
Yeet it.
Yeet it. Yeet it. Yeet it. Yeet it. Yeet it. Okay,
Kinsey, what's wrong with you?
basically what we should all understand with this video, and one of the main takeaways here, radio signals are bad. Anything invisible is evil. Evil! Evil! They're everywhere, you can't see them! You're being microwaved from the inside, don't you know? Don't let the Atari 2700 take over. This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
In a world of generic social media profiles, it's time to stand out. Show how legitimate and serious your brand is with a gorgeous website from Squarespace.
Whether you're a content creator, small business, or you just want to make a custom interactive shrine to cloud gaming, Squarespace has got you covered.
With hundreds of flexible templates, it's easy to find something that fits your specific needs and make it work for you. And you don't even need to be an IT wizard either, since Squarespace's fluid drag and drop interface makes it easy to create exactly what you need.
We even made a page for This Is, and by we, I mean Kinsey made it. With Squarespace's super simple built-in store, we could sell tons of Kyle hats or cracked out of my Jorts shirts, but you could sell your own merch, content, or even your time using Squarespace.
Check out squarespace.com/thisis to get your 14-day free trial and 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And again, huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Next up, we have the Retro VGS/the Coleco Chameleon. This was planned for release in 2016, but it looks like it was discontinued in the 80s. They had like a Kickstarter or whatever, and then they had to go to Indiegogo because they didn't actually have a prototype. So basically, it was just an SNES in an Atari Jaguar case. Then they responded with a different prototype in a clear case where someone pointed out the motherboard was just an actual capture card.
Coleco, whoever owns the rights for that brand, basically they pulled it away when they realized that these guys who they thought were legitimate were completely not.
All these old brands that were massive in like the 80s, 90s, whatever, are just gone today.
Which is fine, I guess, as a
but,
cynical marketing. But like
the quality control's not there.
Well, the difference is most of these products actually exist. This did not and will not because it was a complete scam.
Yeah. Objection! Control Vision! This is codename NEMO, and the NEMO stood for Never ever mention outside.
I never ever want to say those words again. So this is a joint venture between some very reputable players in the space. Hasbro, the toy giant, and Nolan Bushnell, the dude who created Atari and Chuck E. Cheese. The concept here was actually kind of interesting. You were going to be able to play video games on VHS. Now that might sound crazy, but in these early days, you didn't have a lot of options for like video game cartridges. A lot of computers in the day actually used cassettes as a storage medium. So VHS was not like completely insane if they could figure out how to make it work, which I don't know if they ever did.
Imagine you spend $300 on this piece of crap. You got a game, and then like your brother writes over it with like a Steve Roseanne rerun on TGIF. Like,
it seemed like a good idea. Like sort of like, you know, you've had like 2 drinks and it's like 7 p.m., but you know you're gonna stay out till 11.
Yeah.
And like you're getting a little fuzzy on like, you know, the logical capabilities of your cranial cortex.
It was kind of like a choose your own adventure book where it's like turn to page, whatever.
Except
yeah.
the Halcyon.
Halcyon.
This was planned to be released in 1985 for the low price of 2,100 United States Freedom Units, which would have been $73,000 in 2024 money. I did the math, look it up. The idea with the Halcyon was that it play games on
Laserdisc, baby! The superior medium.
This also needed a separate cartridge for the vocabulary. The idea was that this was voice activated and it was, quote, artificial intelligence akin to HAL 9000. It would supposedly call you by name, ask you, hey, have you eaten anything lately?
Is that why it's Halcyon?
Oh, you know
Whoa.
what? Actually, though, yes, I think so. This kind of is very indicative of why our games were in the 80s, because graphics were very primitive. This was actually like a very ahead of its time piece of technology, but they were being serious about it. Even ideas that would be like a smart home enabled device that you could tell it, because it had voice control, hey, open my doors. Bill Gates probably had 3.
Yeah, this is so expensive that no home would ever have this. This is the Vision Pro today.
You would have bought one because it had Laserdisc.
Yeah, I did. I love Laserdisc. The Panasonic Jungle.
Wait, Matt. I know about this one. We're gonna have to go way in the archives. I did a video on this. This is the Panasonic Jungle.
Drum and bass.
I can't accept drum and bass. We need jungle, I'm afraid.
So, here's the pitch. Matt,
Yeah.
You're a big fan of one of the worst games of all time.
Whoa!
Candy Crush. Also, one of the other worst games of all time, Balloons. And then, the worst of them all, World of Warcraft. What if you could play World of Warcraft portably? It was actually a sort of ahead of its time kind of concept. This would have been going head to head against something like the 3DS or the Vita.
I used to play WoW on a laptop with like integrated graphics back in 2009. Back in the Burning Crusade era and like Mount Hyall. This is the Konix Multi-System. Did you
Why
ever
does it
wish
look like
that
that?
your console looked like a Megazord from Power Rangers?
Yeah! So this was released by a British joystick manufacturer, which is part of the reason why the actual control was such a big part of it. So it had a control set that you could use as bike handlebars, airplane controls, or a steering wheel. This is back in the day where most controllers had like a D-pad and like an AB and maybe like an XY. You can imagine the graphics on this would have been pretty rough, but actually being able to like turn the wheel, it would have been maybe a little bit of an arcadey experience. The idea is this was only going to be 200 pounds. And there are actually a lot of investors, like people were really into it. But unfortunately, the company ran out of money and subsequently it went nowhere.
The problem is like, this sounds great on paper.
Yeah.
But this looks cheap. This looks like the same like plastic toy that like you'd give like a 5-year-old. This doesn't look like something that you'd want to like have last or whatever.
No good. Stick to your Nintendos, my dudes.
Moma Eve!
It's a Moma
It's
Eve.
Moma Eve!
Take your Steam Deck and throw it in the garbage because this ran Windows XP Embedded Edition.
There are dozens of megahertz here.
So many hertz. It
I
hurts
just
to
love
look
that
at.
this was made by the Ministry for Mobile Affairs. I'm pretty sure that that is the Harry Potter division.
Dudley got that for Christmas.
Yeah.
The idea was that even though it was a mobile PC, it was sort of like siloed. So you still need to connect it to your PC and load games onto it. But you also needed, and I don't understand this, a SIM card to unlock the system.
Don't you wish that your mobile handheld had DRM all the time, but not any of the online capabilities? And also, don't you wish that you could never put this in your pocket because it was always open at a 45-degree angle?
That is wild to me because it looks like a foldable. It's not.
This feels like a futuristic device that you'd see like in Star Trek that would just be a prop. After some copyright disputes, they were never heard from again.
Who copyrighted it? The Ministry for Good Ideas? Yes!
No!
Yes! The KFConsole boy! This is not vaporware, I'll have you know. Because while it was announced in December of 2020, it has yet to grace us with its presence. But boy, oh boy, am I convinced that my bucket of KFC gaming goodness is gonna be showing up to my doorstep any minute now. I preemptively pre-ordered a dozen of them because I was hungry.
They partnered with Cooler Master, who made a sub-brand for this, which was Warmer Master. This provided stunning 4K, 244 FPS, but only while running the Colonel Sanders dating sim.
That checks out. A top-end Intel CPU.
Yep.
Which kind? Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Hot swappable mini GPU, which I will say, there's never been a hot swappable GPU ever.
The hot swappable here is that this was a chicken warming drawer.
Oh.
So it was swappable while it was hot, because what it did is it used the heat from the CPU to warm your chicken. Ironically, they wanted to make all the buttons capacitive, but then they realized you couldn't do that because after you ate a double down and burned off all your fingertips, the capacitive touch wouldn't work anymore.
I think that the KFC console will show up any day now. It was surely not a marketing ploy to get a bunch of PR about KFC and to pump their stock price and to get gamers really excited about a bucket of chicken.
But like, did they have to go so hard on the renders? Intellivision Amico. I believe we're still waiting for this one.
We're waiting on a lot of things.
Tommy Tallarico of Roblox.
Wait,
and various
stop,
fraud fame.
Pause. Did you just do the oof noise?
Yeah.
You're gonna get copyrighted for that. You can't say oof. I'm gonna call Tommy. I'm gonna tell him you did the oof, and he's not gonna be happy.
He acquired the rights to Intellivision and went on to crowdfund the new retro console using the Intellivision brand. It ran family games on a processor from a $100 Android phone from 2016.
Oof.
He tried to get $5 million in Robux.
Wait, can I guess? How much did he actually raise?
$60,000, which was roughly 4 Roblox gift cards from Target. It's gonna happen. You know how?
How?
Because they've also attached some NFTs to this.
Oh, so it's a real product then. Okay, I was a little unsure, Matt. You were telling me about this, and I'm like, it sounded sus. But as soon as you give me the Intellivision NFTs, I'm all about it, baby. While we might be years and years on, apparently it is not a dead console, and they're still working on it, and they're gonna make it work eventually, assuming they didn't spend it on NFTs already.
Or cocaine. I imagine all these guys are just like doing a line, just
Intellivision.
what if we made an Intellivision but worse? Red Jade, my nickname in high school.
Now pause. Please elaborate.
Look at me, of course. This was planned to have an online distribution of games and content and performance on par with 5th generation consoles.
So basically, the PSP before the PSP.
Yeah. We all remember the .com bubble.
Yeah, I invested my life savings in pets.com.
I thought pets.com was shipping pets.
Can I order a cat online to be delivered with 5-day shipping? Like what? So essentially, as we all know, the .com bubble exploded, much like Matt's hopes and dreams in 2002. And what we found was that all of these wacky projects that were funded by zero interest rate phenomenon evaporated real quick. This did not see the light of day. And you can see that there was still other things that were kind of inspired by this. Like this to me, I look at it and it gives me Engage vibes.
What psychopath put the joysticks on top of the buttons?
Oh, I know this. The Sega Neptune. Cast your mind back to the early 90s. Sega, very successful video game company, coming off the heights of the Genesis / Mega Drive. Instead of making a new console, which they were doing at the same time, they also wanted to make a bunch of add-ons for the thing that they had already sold you. So they brought out the Sega CD. Yeah. Then they brought out the 32X, a way to deliver the power of Tower, the Tower of Power. They were like, hey, what if we just keep making the Genesis forever? And so the bright idea for Sega, who knew no one's buying this goofy Tower of Power except people who have real taste. They're like, hey, what if we just put together the Neptune, which would allow you to have a combination unit where you could play all of your Genesis games. I think you still had to attach the CD attachment.
Yeah.
I don't think it actually came with that. And it would have been $150. So, you know, less than the 32X by itself.
Unfortunately, this didn't work out because Neptune was in retrograde when this was announced.
Oh, yeah.
And so they actually decided to pull it from shelves. Here's the thing. This was all just a big April Fool's joke. And the only known prototype of this is sitting in the Video Game History Museum, and it's just made of wood and plastic.
This kind of made sense. The problem was, instead of Sega doing the right thing, which was to make like, you know, essentially this would have been like the PS4 Pro of its day. But instead, imagine when the PS4 came out, they sold you an add-on that went onto the side of the system, only had a limited selection of games, and was incredibly expensive. And by the time they had figured out the Neptune, like, oh, we're gonna ship this thing, the Saturn was out.
Yeah.
They moved on to a totally different planet. You know, like we were a few years away from playing on the Saturn Uranus.
And last but certainly least, we have the Atari Cosmos.
Atari in the early 80s were showered with cash, and they were developing bangers like E.T. and probably other games that were great and delightful. And they also developed the Cosmos. This was exhibited at the 1981 New York Toy Fair, and it had a very simple sort of handheld LED display, except it didn't have millions of pixels. No, it had like 20.
Basically, it was just a series of mirrors of that, like, would make it look like somewhat holographic.
I actually have tried some things that are vaguely similar to this. So when we did an episode of Sendico Tech, we looked at a bunch of these Japanese little handheld consoles that had like actual like LED displays and stuff. They weren't quite the same as the Cosmos, but I wouldn't be surprised if Atari looked at what they were doing, a lot of these Japanese companies, and they decided to try to make their own version. They actually got pre-orders for this thing too, but I think they quickly realized that it was a dumb idea. They pulled the plug. Thankfully, there are actually a few of these still floating in the Cosmos that exist in the real world. As someone who also was not at the 1981 New York Toy Fair, I think that the answer to how the Atari Cosmos worked will be left forever to our imagination, floating in the Cosmos alongside the Saturn Uranus.
If you want to sat on Uranus with the Atari Cosmos, like, follow, subscribe, and then...
Where's my AI? I need my AI!
Why is it that when you put the hat on, you just start yelling about AI? Like, follow, subscribe,
Developers!
and we'll catch you in the next one.
Put Windows XP on it!
Boston is just Steve Ballmer.